Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. Today's video is my review of the new Summon Showcase, An Enchanting Ensemble. This new showcase lasts through December 11th, and the new focus units aren't event exclusive. They'll be added to the normal summoning pool after this showcase ends. With the new showcase also comes a new channel giveaway for a $10 Google Play or iTunes gift card. Also, congratulations to Ryan Smith, who won the previous giveaway. A link to the new Gleam page is in the description below. This is by far the most complex summon showcase I've had to evaluate yet. There is a lot to talk about here, some of which extends beyond the showcase itself as it relates to the future of Dragalia Lost. Therefore, I want to remind you that this is an initial analysis to help you decide whether to summon or not. I haven't summoned yet, nor used any of the focus units in battle, so take what I say with a grain of salt. This is just one person's opinion after all, and I'll specifically emphasize gameplay potential, not necessarily characters whose designs or stories I like. Timecodes are on screen now, and I'll just mention one last thing about this showcase. It's a bit different than previous ones in that there are two featured 4-star adventurers rather than one 3-star and one 4-star. Worry not though, this doesn't make it harder to summon either 4-star compared to a normal focus 4-star. Both of them benefit from a rate up, and that means it's less likely to pull an off-focus 4-star adventurer. With that out of the way, let's get into it. We'll begin today by looking at Wyrmprints, and to start things off, we've got a new mechanic making its debut with this showcase. Or perhaps I should say, an old mechanic in a new context. Element-specific abilities are now present on Wyrmprints as well, not just on dragons. For this showcase in particular, there are 3 Wyrmprints with abilities that only work when the equipped unit is attuned to the light element. Otherwise, those abilities are rendered useless. So before we get into the Wyrmprints themselves, here are my thoughts on this new mechanic. If you watched my first impressions video for this showcase, you'll know that I wasn't immediately a fan of element-specific Wyrmprints. Wyrmprints are already narrow in their application, so making them even more narrow and limiting their optimal use to specific adventurers just seemed disappointing to me. And to be honest, I still don't love them. But I have come around slightly, and here's why. These designs allow the dev team to push the power level of Wyrmprints, since it's balanced somewhat by their inherent elemental limitations. And a higher Wyrmprint power level hopefully means that Wyrmprints become more relevant in general. Besides that, as we'll see with one of these new Wyrmprints in particular, these also may be an indication more mixed element quests are on the way. All in all, I definitely think that there are pros and cons to this mechanic. Let's look over the actual Wyrmprints now to see how it's been executed, shall we? First up is the 3-star Secret Friend, and I won't even dwell on this one. It's not very good. It has identical stats to Enchiridion, another 3-star with skill haste. The only advantage Secret Friend has is that it provides 1 extra percentage point of skill haste, and that comes with the drawback of only being usable for light adventurers. As cute as this may be for Halloween Elisan, it just can't compete as a 3-star. If you really want skill haste, which itself has been called into question recently, you're better off waiting to summon a 4-star like Happier Times or the 5-star Jewels of the Sun. Next up, we have a returning Wyrmprint, which was given a rate up for this showcase. Revolutionary Magic is a balanced 4-star Wyrmprint, both in terms of its stats and its abilities. One is offensive, and the other is defensive. The draw here is likely to be full HP equals skill damage, since paralysis isn't too bad of a status ailment, and many of the Shadow Adventurers you'd bring to light maps already have it built in. But if you just want to dish out more skill damage at full HP, there are better options out there. Happier Times has the same first ability as Revolutionary Magic, but also comes with skill haste and more aggressive stats. Witch's Kitchen has an even higher percentage of full HP equals skill damage, and it comes with blindness res instead of paralysis res. Then there's the tried and true free Wyrmprint from Halloween, Plunder Pals, which grants extra skill damage unconditionally with no HP threshold involved. If you've already max unbound that, it's very hard to suggest Revolutionary Magic outside of its dazzling artwork of Althemia. Now we come to another new Wyrmprint, and this is the second one with a light attuned ability. Critical rate up this time around. This is another split identity Wyrmprint in terms of stats and abilities, but the overall package makes more sense than that of Revolutionary Magic. Kicking back is best on a light adventurer, will enjoy the extra critical rate and naturally wants to face off against shadow enemies, where that extra shadow res is a pretty nice bonus to have. Of course, I still have to point out that you really aren't getting a whole lot more critical rate considering the significant drawback that the first ability on this Wyrmprint is limited to light adventurers. It's only a percentage point more than what One with the Shadows provides, which also comes with the always solid Broken Punisher ability. And likewise, if you just want shadow res from kicking back, you'd be better off with Lord of the Skies for most adventurers, since it has both shadow res and overdrive Punisher. In the end, the best part of kicking back, for better or for worse, has to be how surprisingly chiseled Luca is in that artwork. Moving on to the 5-star Wyrmprints, here's where things get a bit more interesting. Heavenly Holiday is the third and final new Wyrmprint with a light ability, this time granting extra curse res. So in total, on a light adventurer, this Wyrmprint grants 75 or 100% curse res once max unbound, and on any other adventurer, it only provides 50% or 60% curse res. The thing about this Wyrmprint is that many light units already have curse res, oftentimes up to 100% in their innate kit. The way Affliction works, going over 100% res can help against foes who have a higher than 100% chance to inflict curse, but so far that isn't prevalent in the game. Still, this Wyrmprint does provide a lot of HP, and it can work fairly well on light units like Julieta with poison res instead of curse res. Besides that, you have to imagine we'll get more mixed element and multi-affliction content in the future, much like what we faced in Chapter 6 of the game's campaign. So while it's hard to suggest pulling for this, it at least has uses if you do happen to summon it, perhaps even more so going forward. I definitely wouldn't recommend trying to max unbind it, of course. It's just too narrow to suggest that, given how slowly we accrue Wyrmprint unbinding materials. And finally, the last Wyrmprint we'll be looking at today is another new 5-star, Resounding Rendition, and this one is excellent, period. It's a better Plunder Pals, although harder to max unbind, with both higher stats and a relevant second ability. The closest comparison is something like Valiant Crown, which provides the same amount of skill damage and has similar stats. Yet Valiant Crown's second ability is a strength double buff, only relevant on team comps which include a defense buffer, whereas Resounding Rendition's HP of 70% equals critical rate will always be relevant. It's not quite as much critical rate as something like Levin's Champion, but when it comes on top of skill damage, it's hard to deny this Wyrmprint is anything but solid. Just remember that Plunder Pals was available to max unbind for free, and reaching that point with Resounding Rendition will take a lot of summoning or a lot of golden keys. Okay, and that covers all of the Wyrmprints on this new showcase. To be honest, this selection is a bit underwhelming. The most exciting prospect of these elemental Wyrmprints for me was their potential to push the envelope when it comes to Wyrmprint power level, yet the ones featured on this showcase feel very safe. You're only getting a percentage point or so more on the 3-star and 4-star than what you'd get from non-elemental options. And even though Heavenly Holiday is good at its specific purpose, its scope is very narrow for the time being. Add the fact that the free Wyrmprint Plunder Pals is good enough when compared to Resounding Rendition, and well, I wouldn't summon for any of these Wyrmprints. But let's see if the showcase starts to turn around when it comes to dragons. First up, at 4-star, is the light dragon focused on HP, Unicorn. Suitable for healers and possibly tanks, but not as good as the 5-star Jeanne d'Arc, unfortunately, since she can buff team defense with her skill. Even if you don't have Jeanne d'Arc, there just isn't too much unique about Unicorn that a free copy of Jupiter won't suffice for. If you lack light dragons, she can round out your team, but Unicorn herself isn't a great reason to summon. HP dragons at 4-star kind of need something special like Phoenix to really be worth pulling for. So no great reasons to summon yet, but Cupid, the 5-star dragon, may just change that. I never recommend chasing after a specific 5-star since it can get very costly quickly, but if you do plan to whale, Cupid's good. He's the first light dragon at 5-star who enhances strength, providing a whopping plus 40 or 60%, which by itself is excellent. That's all it takes for someone like Agni to be viable, for instance. But to top things off, Cupid has an insanely powerful skill, Lovely Pose. It heals your entire team, then increases their critical rate by 20 or 25% for 15 seconds. That's only the second dragon skill in the game to heal an entire team, after Phoenix's, although hers does heal for more with its HP regen effect. But even if the heal is small, make no mistake, the critical buff is big. If you're running a dagger unit, Levin's champion, or say Mikoto, you'll proc a lot of criticals, and hence inflict a lot of damage after Cupid's skill is used. Against a broken foe, this could be devastating, and when compared to the Light Dragon focused on strength at 4-star, it's not very close. Lindworm has no noteworthy effects except a wide range of attack, making Cupid the clear choice for those who have access to both. I do think you still want to run Jeanne d'Arc for dedicated healers like Hildegard, but Cupid is outstanding for tanks like Julieta, support units like Halloween Elisan, and attackers like Lucretia. And speaking of Lucretia, how about we look over the adventurers now? The dragons were a bit mixed, a not so great 4-star and a potentially busted 5-star. So let's see how the adventurers fare. Before we begin though, we have another new mechanic to talk about, and this one, just like the last, leaves us a lot to unpack. Energy levels are a new type of buff in Dragalia Lost, relevant to all 3 of the new adventurers on this showcase, as well as the free unit Elias. Here's how energy works. Whenever certain skills are activated, adventurers' energy levels can increase up to a maximum of level 5. Once at energy level 5, an adventurer is said to be energized, and the next attacking or healing skill they use will be powered up. Afterward, their energy level will then reset back to 0. There is one catch though, and that is that energy will also reset to 0 when hit with a status affliction, and it won't be possible to increase energy at all while under the effects of an affliction. A big unknown at the time of recording as well is by just how much energized skills are actually enhanced. So right away, this new mechanic excites me. I love that it changes the way we think about the game, including how we time skills across party members in order to utilize energy optimally. At the same time though, I have to recognize this mechanic is very linear and very slow to build up solo. It really encourages you to use a full team of adventurers who rely on this same mechanic, and as of now, it's hard to say just how many there will be, beyond the 4 added to the game during this update. If energy is a major mechanic moving forward, then the adventurers available on this showcase start to look pretty good. Their synergies only stand to increase, and now would seem to be a good time to pick up several who work together well. Even if energy is partially supported with, for instance, one new adventurer every few banners, this mechanic looks like it will shape up to be fairly strong. But if energy is a one and done mechanic and we never see it again, this showcase starts to look a lot less linear and a lot more parasitic. That would mean only 4 adventurers in the game who care about and work with energy at all, which would really limit customization if you want to build an energy-focused team. So I hope that if energy is going to be a thing, this isn't the last time we'll be seeing it. But let's move on to the individual adventurers so you get a sense for what I mean. First up, we have Pia, an absolutely adorable wind adventurer from the Harmonia Choir who wields a lance. Pia is a defense unit, and her stats reflect this. She has a lot of HP, and her strength is manageable, but slightly on the lower side. Her first skill, Kaboom, is a damaging attack similar to Eileen's Valkyrie Blast, and as the only other wind lance, Eileen is also Pia's closest competitor. Thanks to Pia's Bog Res and Eileen's Freeze Res though, these two can coexist and both hold their own fairly well. Pia's definitely more focused on tanking, as her first ability makes her very hard to take down as long as her HP is kept above 70%. The biggest unknowns with Pia's kit then are the things I haven't mentioned yet. She already seems solid, but her second skill and third ability interact with energy, and how good these are is very dependent on your team's setup. Pia's second skill, Cheer Up Chums, has no effect except to increase the team's energy levels by 1, besides its iframe I suppose, which won't matter at all unless you can activate that skill 5 times in a match. or unless Pia is on a dedicated energy team where she can become energized more quickly. Her energy double buff, unlocked once Pia is promoted to a 5-star, is likewise very team dependent, requiring an ally who can buff the team's defense, all for a single extra energy to Pia whenever those buffs are used. So I like Pia, but I don't think she can function at her best on just any team and with just any setup. So let's look over some build ideas. For Wyrmprints, I like honing in on Pia's HP threshold ability at 70%. Since that provides her more defense, consider Better Together as a budget pick, or Jewels of the Sun as a more expensive option to also provide her more strength at that same 70% cutoff. Jewels of the Sun will hopefully help her charge her energy game plan faster as well, thanks to its skill haste. For dragons, Pia would benefit from either HP or strength, so something like High Midgard Stormer is great if you have him. Otherwise, Strabog is a good 4-star pick, thanks to its skill drawing foes in, while Garuda is my favorite overall at 5-star, since her self-healing skill allows Pia to remain at or above 70% of her total HP. In terms of teammates, you could focus on energy, and you probably do want Lucretia around if you have a copy, but otherwise, since Pia is a wind unit, Lowen and Luis make good companions. As a tank, Pia can handle mobs that otherwise pester Lowen and Luis, who are both ranged units, and Lowen can both trigger Pia's energy double buff and keep her health above 70%. Meanwhile, Luis's skill haste co-ability should help Pia achieve an energy level of 5 faster. And finally, for weapons, the 4-star elemental Wind Lance gives Pia a second attack skill, while the 5-star Gaybolg, which leads into the Wind 5-star Lance, heals surrounding allies. Ultimately, neither is bad and both have useful skills which can be enhanced once Pia is energized. It just comes down to what you have. Okay, moving on from Pia, we come to the second 4-star focus adventurer, Vixel, a light staff healer. He's actually the 5th light staff in the game, so he has to do a lot to prove himself worth summoning for. Unless you're after him for husbando reasons, of course. And wow, is Vixel a curious fellow. He has an unusual resistance to sleep as a light unit. His healing move, Spirited Song, cures stun, also odd since that's typically inflicted by flame or wind foes. And his Agitado Assault is yet another skill which increases team energy levels, but this time it also boosts team recovery potency for a limited duration, an uncommon effect, and one that encourages proper timing. Vixel's first ability is full HP equals healing. The percentage is good and it's a fine ability, if a bit restrictive. Once promoted to a 5-star, Vixel unlocks his final ability Skill Prep. Pretty nice for a healer to have access to heals when needed, and it allows Vixel to also move forward his energy game plan more quickly. These two abilities are certainly the most straightforward aspects of Vixel. With his surprising kit, I have to imagine that Vixel is designed around some type of future content, or to bring to a variety of maps, since light and shadow units have no inherent weaknesses. Still, it's hard to recommend summoning for him unless you like his character, given Hope, Estelle, Halloween Althemia, and especially Hildegard are all decent to great in their own right, and you'll probably have at least one of them. Estelle is a particularly apt comparison, since her second skill provides regen, and she also has sleep res to a lesser degree, once promoted to a 5-star. So it kind of comes down to this in terms of strategy. If you want to build the energy team, you'll want Vixel. Otherwise, I think he's pretty easy to skip. So if you do pull for or happen to summon Vixel though, here's how I suggest building him. As a healer, he can take advantage of Luis's hobbies. It's the Plunder Pals of healing. Free, easy to max unbind, and applicable to any healing units. For a costlier pick, you could also go for Heavenly Holiday. This would help compensate for Vixel's lack of curse res, and since he's a healer, he also enjoys the high amount of HP Heavenly Holiday provides. And speaking of HP, that's what Vixel wants from his dragons as well. Unicorn is fine, but Jeanne d'Arc is excellent. It all comes down to what you happen to have. If nothing else, a Jupiter will do just fine. For teammates, well, if you want to utilize Vixel's energy increasing second skill, then Elias and Lucretia have the most synergy. Sure, any adventurer can take advantage of being energized, but all by himself, it may be tough for Vixel to energize the team, meaning hit energy level 5, over the course of a match. Second skills tend to charge more slowly, so it'd need to be a fairly long battle to actually utilize energy unless you're also running Lucretia, Elias, or even Pia. For weapons, I like the 3-star Halloween Staff Vampire's Lantern on Vixel. It heals the teammate most in need, just like the 4-star Beauty's Balm, but it actually provides Vixel more stats since its element is attuned to his own. At 5-star, I also like Otherworldly Bow, which leads into the Light Elemental Staff. It damages surrounding foes, perfect for clearing out any mobs chasing Vixel, and likely powerful when energized. Alright, and we've come to the final adventure on the showcase at last. Lucretia, another energy-themed unit, this time a 5-star Light Element Wand Attacker. Lucretia, like all natural 5-stars, has great stats and a strong co-ability. Her strength is one of the highest in the game, and thankfully, her kit is the most self-contained of all the energy-themed adventurers we've seen. Her first skill, Empowering Triplet, increases team energy levels by 1, but crucially, it also deals damage, making it much better than the energy-enhancing moves of Vixel, Pia, and Elias. And Lucretia's second skill, Crescendo Chorus, ups her strength by 10% for 10 seconds, then increases her energy level by 1, or once upgraded, by 2. This means Lucretia can attain an energy level of 5 far more quickly than any other adventurer. And when she does hit energy level 5, her first ability gives her an additional strength buff for a limited time. I originally thought this worked whenever her energy level rose at all, and while it's not quite that good, I imagine Lucretia will still be able to hit energy level 5 at least once on most quests. Following that, Lucretia has Curse as her affliction resistance. Nice since her kit is very skill dependent, and her final ability is the ever solid Broken Punisher. There's only one other Light Wand adventurer, Amane, and Lucretia compares favorably to her. Somewhat expected since Lucretia has a higher natural rarity, but what really stands out is how similar their kits are. Since they even have the same affliction resistance, Lucretia probably takes Amane's spot on any team comps you build, if you happen to have both. While Pia, Vixel, and Elias need to jump through some hoops to utilize energy, Lucretia can slot into any team and be just fine with her self buffs. Lucretia being so self-contained also makes building her fairly easy. She should be able to keep her HP fairly high as a wand unit, so Wyrmprints like Gentle Winds and Jewels of the Sun, which increase her strength at 100% and 70% HP respectively, are good on Lucretia. An added bonus to both is that they also quicken her skill use, with skill prep and skill haste respectively. For dragons, just pick the ones who provide the most strength. Lindworm will do, but Cupid is outstanding. And for teammates, if you really want to build the energy team, include Elias and Vixel alongside Lucretia. Otherwise, as I just mentioned, she slots in anywhere pretty well. Lastly, just pick a weapon with another attacking skill, Rod of Alchemy at 4-star or the Welkin Wand line at 5-star to utilize Lucretia's co-ability and potentially power up once she's energized. Was this a tough showcase to evaluate? With both the energy mechanic and element-specific Wyrmprints, it's harder than ever to consider things in isolation, and less useful to evaluate them in a vacuum. Paradoxically though, the verdict this time is easier than ever before. Even if you want to summon on this showcase, you should wait until the final day it's available, December 11th. And that's because the Dragalia team started something new this release. They actually previewed what's coming out on the next showcase one day early. Wait and see what the showcase holds before making your summoning decision. If the next showcase is event exclusive, and it's very likely to be given the holiday season, you could wait until you know that for sure, see if you like the units, and then pick whether you want to summon on that showcase or on this one. And if the next showcase features units who also utilize energy, then we'll have a clearer picture of whether this was just a one-off mechanic or one we can expect more of from time to time. So the Dragalia team providing official previews really contains a lot of information. As is, it's hard to recommend summoning on an Enchanting Ensemble. Unicorn and the Wyrmprints aren't really worth pulling for. Vixel is replaceable, Pia needs a dedicated team to reach her maximum, and Lucretia and Cupid are really the only chased units. But it's costly to target specific 5-stars, even if you'd be happy with either one of those two. If you lack strong light adventurers for the raid, well, Vixel and Unicorn, the two you can realistically expect to summon, are fine, but not super well suited for that. On the bright side, I will say this showcase benefits those who summon in bulk. If you have saved up a lot of Wyrmite and get lucky enough to pull Lucretia, you could very possibly get Pia and Vixel too. I know I would love to see a theme team like that in action, especially after how touching their story was in Resplendent Refrain. Cygames really knows how to pull on the heartstrings and make you want to summon. But as tempting as it is, my plan is to wait until the banner's final day if I do decide to pull. Alright, and that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know if you summoned and who you got in the comments below. Be sure to check out the Gleam link in the description to enter the giveaway, and otherwise, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.